here would be the order in the process that I would want to see you do this in, so that we can make sure that setup is not one of the reasons that we might be early extending. I would set my stance width, probably roughly shoulder width. I would flex my knees over the balls of my feet with pressure in the balls of my feet. So this is creating my ground. This is creating my ground force, and this is creating my stability here. And then from here, if you watch my belt line, I'm going to tuck this to begin. So you can see my belt line here is very neutral. Okay, so I'm gonna hold this golf club right here in my belly button. So I'm gonna hold this right here. I'm actually engaging the glutes here, and what I'm gonna do is I'm going to lean over this right here. So I'm going into flexion of what the spine is doing. So now as I'm in here, what you'll notice is I could go here, I can extend this moving into impact to where I'm in good posture now with the spine. You'll notice my head didn't move.
We'd like to thank Element for sponsoring today's video. So one of the big things for me that's really changed my game, my ability to focus, and my ability to finish rounds out on the golf course is to be able to replace my electrolytes. I realized through some research that I was losing a lot of sodium. I needed to replace that sodium and replace those electrolytes. And something what I thought was such a little thing made such a huge difference in my performance. Element is a drink that replaces essential electrolytes without sugar, coloring, gluten, or artificial ingredients. It contains a science-backed electrolyte ratio. 1,000 milligrams sodium, 200 milligrams potassium, 60 milligrams magnesium, formulated to help anyone with their electrolyte needs. Right now, Element is offering my viewers a sample pack with any order. This is a great way to try all 8 flavors or share Element with a friend. You can get yours at drinkelement.com/ecgolf, and the deal is only available through this link. To perform at your physical best every single day, proper hydration is key.
All right, what's going on, everybody? This is Trevor Salzman. You've probably seen me on the channel here before. So in today's video, what we're gonna go into is we're gonna go into a topic that is it really hits home for me a lot. It's called early extension. I know this is an issue that we've seen a lot of you out there struggle with. What we're gonna do is I'm gonna shed some light into why do people early extend? And for me, really, this was the big kicker for me in understanding how to actually start to change this, how to get rid of this. Because I mean, I tried everything back in the day for me to actually change it, and nothing was successful for me until I actually started to understand, one, what the spine has the ability to do, and also how powerful the setup is. So when we look at the traditional setup, like a traditional setup that I was taught. So I was taught from right here, if I held the golf club right here, basically in my belt line, I was taught to hinge from my pelvis. So what happens here is when I start to hinge from my pelvis, what I'm doing is I'm taking my hips and I'm taking my shoulders away from my median line. So my median line would be the seam line on my pant or the seam line on my jacket right here. So what this is doing is when I hinge from here and I move the shoulders and I move the hips further away from that, this is now making me top heavy. This looks like I'm in a really, really good posture right here. But as I'm top heavy, one, I'm only gonna be able to turn to about to here in my posture unless I start to stand up out of my posture to finish my turn. Or two, if I stay in this posture, as I start to kick speed to this, my shoulder and my hip is going to want to start moving back towards this median line, which would be the form of early extension. Because if I don't do that, I'm going to hammer the ground right here. So for a lot of you, early extension, if you're trying to fix early extension without fixing what your setup issue is, you're fighting the wrong battle right here. So some of the key parameters that I think are really important for us to understand is how we actually want to set up the spine. So when I'm standing straight up and down here like this, I could chill here all day. This is a very, very comfortable position for me to be in because the shoulders and the pelvis are in line with my median line here, and I'm in balance. Think about how long you could stand here for. We're not going to be able to stand here very long. You can feel even the lumbar spine right here. This starts to work a little bit harder, and the supporting muscle groups around it start to work harder because now the lumbar spine is carrying the mass of my chest, my core, my lower back, upper back, shoulders, arms, neck, and head. which is again, another reason why we stand up. So when we look at what we want to do with the spine, one of the best relationships that I could use to explain this to you would be understanding an alignment stick. So if this was my neck and this is my tailbone, traditional setup would be where our back would be straight. So if this right here, if this moves backwards, my head moves backwards. If this moves up, my head moves up. Just like right here, if my butt moved back, my head would move back. And if this moves forward, I would stand up. So what we want to do is we want to create balance inside of the spine by counterbalancing the mass of the shoulders and counterbalancing the mass of the pelvis. That would be bending more from the mid-spine. So again, this is my tailbone, this is my neck. What we're going to do right here is we're going to go into what we would call flexion of the spine. So again, my neck is up here, tailbone's here. I have the ability now to move from this position into supportive posture down at the moment of impact. That's what's going to allow me to maintain my spine inclination when I'm moving at my highest speed, which is going to help us out quite a bit with the strike of the shot right here. So a really cool way of doing this right here is if you took your setup, or if we got right here into the golf ball, if you're standing straight up and down here on median line, here would be the order in the process that I would want to see you do this in, so that we can make sure that setup is not one of the reasons that we might be early extending. I would set my stance width, probably roughly shoulder width. I would flex my knees over the balls of my feet with pressure in the balls of my feet. So this is creating my ground. This is creating my ground force, and this is creating my stability here. And then from here, if you watch my belt line, I'm going to tuck this to begin. So you can see my belt line here is very neutral. Okay, so I'm going to hold this golf club right here in my belly button. So I'm going to hold this right here. I'm actually engaging the glutes here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to lean over this right here. So I'm going into flexion of what the spine is doing. So now as I'm in here, what you'll notice is I could go here, I can extend this moving into impact to where I'm in good posture now with the spine. You'll notice my head didn't move. Right in here again, let's go through that process one more time. So we've got our stance width, weight is on the balls of the feet. We're going to flex the knees, tuck the belt. This club right here is going to go right into our belly button, and we're going to lean over this as the glutes are engaged. That's putting my spine into flexion right here. So now, if I took this position from here at setup and I move to impact, you'll see I can move the rear back, but my head's not moving backwards, and you can see my spine is actually now in a good posture. This is going to give me stability down here at impact, as opposed to doing it the reverse way, which is what I always struggled with, which was hinging from the waist right in here, trying to create speed and moving into this early extended position. You could do all the drills in the world. You could throw something behind your rear. I am 99% sure this is not going to fix anything. You might be able to do it at slower speeds, but this isn't going to rectify it in regards to doing it at your full speed in a full length of motion. So one thing that I would really challenge you to do, really make sure that you check this off of your list and make sure that setup is not one of your keys to why you early extend.